Welcome back, everybody, to the next episode of Behind the Pencil. I know we went on hiatus for probably close to a year. There was a whole bunch of tech issues and stuff, so we actually have a returning guest for me, but the first time you'll be hearing him. He's the creator of Decay. Please, I am very excited to introduce...
Okay, yeah, Anthony Stokes. I think that's what we're supposed to do, right?
Yeah!
Okay, alright, cool.
Anthony, so happy you could make it back after all of this time. For our listeners at home who don't know, we recorded when your series Decay first came out. When issue 1 was on Kickstarter, we had some tech issues, and then my basement flooded and ruined my computer. And then here we are 12 months later at the end of Decay. We now we started talking at the start of the series, and now we're talking at the end of the series.
Yeah, actually, small note, it was Decay issue 2 that started, but I believe this was my first interview when I really started doing a lot of interviews, I believe. This is my second, third, or fourth interview, so this is cool. Go back.
Nice. I'm very excited. I got to see issues 1 and 2, and then I got to see it grow all the way to 5. I saw the end of the series, and that's what we're going to be talking about. I'm going to try not to get too spoiler heavy. You can go ahead and stop me if you think I'm talking about something that you want the audience to see. But I read it all. It's fucking phenomenal, and I'm excited for people to go ahead and get in this as well.
That's cool. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Now, before we get into the comic, what's up with you? Catch me up on the last year. Tell me about the campaign. Tell me about making the different issues. Just what's happened in the last 365 days on your end.
Oh man, I've just been working, man. I started I think 4 new series. Essentially, let me look at my whiteboard. Yeah, 4 new series, man. I've been trying to just been working, man. Just making comics for the last year, man. It's really been a bit of a vacuum, you know.
Oh, I totally get that. But at least you spent a year doing something that you're passionate about, making 4 new comic series. That's so cool. Here I am. I have 0 comic series to my name, and you're out here doing Decay and 4 other ones. Come on.
No, and that's also why I'm really it's like a nostalgic thing that Decay's ending, but it's also phew, all right, 1 off my plate, and then I can focus on some of these other series once this is done.
Okay, nice. Now, for the people who haven't read Decay and haven't been following the Kickstarter, go ahead and give us the elevator pitch for it. And if you want to, people make fun of me all the time for my elevator pitches. I'm from New York. We have very tall buildings, and our elevators are the rides longer than other cities' elevators. So please, imagine you're on a New York City skyscraper elevator. Give me the elevated elevator pitch.
Absolutely. So it's about a brother and sister, DK and Jess, and the brother is killed, wrong place, wrong time. His sister practices voodoo, brings him back to life, and he goes on a murderous rampage, and, she may begin to regret that decision.
That's a very concise elevator pitch. You probably only made it to the 4th floor. But right. That works. It's that's the gist of the story. And if that hooked you, you're gonna love this. And even if it didn't hook you, you're still gonna love it. Sure. It's real tough to sum up an entire story's worth in a 1-sentence pitch. So I get that. But okay. So I finished it yesterday. I have it on the iPad, and I don't know about you, but it's been beautiful weather this week. It's been 60 degrees out.
Yeah.
So I have it on my iPad, and every time I go to take the dogs out to fetch, I read the next issue. So I've been reading it outside, and it's great. And so when we first spoke, I actually tried to go back and re-listen to the first time we recorded the podcast, but because it was just my audio, I got 15 minutes into it because I wanted to refresh myself on what we talked about. I'm I don't even have his answers. It's not like I'm missing what I'm saying. I don't know what I don't know the responses are. So I try to listen to that, but going back to memory, one of the major influence you had on this was the Kendrick Lamar album, Good Kid, Mad City, right?
Yes, absolutely. One of my favorite pieces of media, period, Absolutely.
Now, I heard that story, and I thought that was interesting. Can you go ahead and fill us in on how something that's not a comic book or even something that's a literary text influenced the medium like this? What about that album spoke to you, and what can we see from that album in Decay?
Absolutely. So I think it's about the tone, right? And I think it's about the tone, kind of this. At least when I read good, like listen to Good Kid, Mad City. Like 90% of the album, it gets very dark. It's about life. It's really personal, and it's like this atmosphere that at least gives me anxiety. A lot of stuff gives me anxiety. So it might just be me. Really, it's about just you really just get this great understanding of the characters, and it's also what I've noticed a lot of things do is you have a very Atlanta. I think Atlanta does this too, where you create a premise that's kind of vague enough to lay all kinds of stuff. You can essentially talk about, in the case of Good Kid, Mad City, you can talk about violence, the cyclical nature of violence, religion, romance, systematic poverty. Like you can talk about basically anything because the premise is so light, and that's why that's one of my favorite albums. It's a good example of how to touch on things thematically without like it overloading the narrative essentially.
Oh, I totally get that. Good Kid, Mad City is also like I don't have to tell you it's a phenomenal album. It's one of my favorite records. I'm sure it's a lot of people's favorite records. But yeah, so I was looking at it and I noticed that there was another Kendrick Lamar reference in this. One of the variant covers you have, it's the Damned album cover, but with the character from Decay.
Yes, and it also kind of made total sense. It made complete sense to do it. Damn, being almost more foreboding, but specifically about, I think more about violence and specifically and also dealing with like religion. So it just made too much sense to do that.
Yeah, I like that. I love the hip hop comic book crossover. I know it's very mainstream, but I love it when Marvel does like their hip hop like tribute like variant covers.
Yeah.
And just like they're always cool to look through, and like so much so that Marvel put out collections, no comics, just cover after cover of the variants. And when I saw you do that for this comic, I'm like, fuck yeah, that's super cool. And I knew you previously spoke about the Kendrick influence, so I was happy to see that come out. Like,
Oh yeah, it had to.
now, are there any other besides Kendrick Lamar? Were there any other like hip hop or just music in general, like influence? Like was there anything besides that not in comic book form that you took and put into this?
Oh yeah, I mean, Frankenstein is an obvious influence. Even Last of Us series, not even because of the zombies, to be honest, just the morality of that. I mean, there's so much rap music. It's just my favorite. Like I love movies, right? Like movies. If I had my choice, I'd watch movies every second of the day. Like that's not practical. It's so much easier to like listen to music. So I just love the energy and the tone and yeah, I said energy already, that rap provides. So it depends on the project, right? So I'm working on a Decay sequel. Oh no, man, that's an exclusive. I'm working on a sequel, and I'm listening to a lot of Danny Brown, in 42
Okay.
Dog, a lot of Detroit rap. So it's almost regional, and so that's like just really grimy and just really nasty. Like so, it all depends on the project.
Nice. Now, not super related to the comic book, but you mentioned Danny Brown. Did you hear "Scare in the Hose"?
Oh man, listen, that first track was incredible when Danny comes in at the end. I listened to that. I was at a con. I was walking through Richmond. I was at GalaxyCon Richmond. I'm just walking through, and Richmond is kind of a scary place at night. So like, Danny Brown was very fitting, and I listened to that last track on. Oh my God, what is it? Lean Beef Patty, and oh my God, when the beat drops and it's insane. It's insane, man. It's a great album.
I listened to it the day it came out. I can't say I'm much of a Danny Brown fan myself. Like I can appreciate the artistry. Like he's good at what he does, but
He's amazing.
I just can't get over his voice.
that is a hurdle, yeah.
And I remember like later that day, we're taking the dogs for a walk, and I was explaining to my girlfriend how even though I didn't like his voice, I was able to appreciate like the artistry and the craftsmanship that went into it,
Yeah.
and like the samples of the music. And then I tried to do a Danny Brown impression, and I scared the shit out of my dog.
You know what's so funny is he literally said that he was in debt still from Atrocity Exhibition,
Mhm.
and he's like, "Yeah, they give me $100,000 budget, and I spent $70,000 on samples or something like that."
And like, yeah, the samples is like what stood out to me. There was in addition to his voice, there was one track that had really intricate flute playing,
Yeah,
and I'm not a musician. I don't know anything about that, but I have a friend who has a PhD in saxophone, and he's like super into music and tries to explain stuff to me. And he sent me a video of like the most intricate flute playing you've ever heard, and to me, to the untrained ear, it sounded like nails on a chalkboard. It just sounded like noise.
yeah.
And then they ended up sampling that in this, and I thought that was super cool. That like the musician was able to recognize, oh, even if it doesn't quote unquote sound good, this is like amazing. I'm going to use this as a sample. But
Yeah, I think that's what JPEG and Danny Brown do.
yeah,
Like, it's just like beats that you just wouldn't think would work, and then they kind of put together, And I think that's the beauty of really that's talent right there, essentially, and
yeah.
really good ear.
I'm going to get back to the comic in 1 minute. One of the things I like about this show is behind the pencil. I get to know you. If people want to know about the comic, they can go support on Kickstarter. They can read that. But I'm here to talk to you. So I got one more question, and then we can jump back to Decay.
Sure.
I remember last time we were here, I asked you best rapper in the game right now, and without skipping a heartbeat, you just went Kendrick. I was like, yeah, that was a dumb question. Obviously that was the correct answer. So I'm going to switch it up this time. Top 5 rappers, dead or alive. Go.
Wow. All right. So I gotta have Kendrick Lamar. That's
Okay.
pretty easy. I'm gonna say Nas. I think Nas is a phenomenal rapper. I'm gonna cop out and just say Biggie and Pac, and then who's my 5? Oh man, you kind of threw me a loop here. And then oh my goodness. I don't want to say Jay-Z. I really do not want to. I'm going to say Kanye West, duh.
Okay.
Yeah, Kanye West. I'm going to round it out there. I think 2 underrated people that should be in the GO conversation more is actually Danny Brown, because I think he's making some phenomenal albums. And I think Pusha T is making a good case. Method Man as well. Some dark.
Nice, okay. Very nice, very nice. I was just like, I was listening back to the conversation. I remember I asked you that. And I remember we both joked about how that was such, like, I was expecting it to be like a conversation starter, and it was just such an easy answer. We both just went Kendrick, and that was that. But, so jumping back to Decay, I'm going to talk a little bit about the last issues. I'm going to try and avoid any major plot points in case people want to read it. I don't want it to ruin on this. But I love the idea of the necklace that the sister introduces, and how when it first starts out, you're like, oh, this is the necklace that brought him back. And as the story progresses, the necklace's role gets bigger and bigger and more important. And then the last issue, when the necklace does the necklace thing, I did not see that coming. I was fascinated by it. I was reading it, and I audibly went, fuck yeah, when I was reading that.
What's interesting is I started this story from the ending.
Did you? Okay.
Yes. So it's about the cyclical nature of violence. And so I had to think of a plot device that would make that happen. And then I thought about the twist. And I think the twist really is thematic. If I can brag here, it thematically brings that point together. It brings that point together like perfectly about the cyclical nature of violence. Like it's also, I don't think it's a twist, but I think there's a couple twists here where it's not like, it's a plot twist for sure, but it's not really plot heavy, so I think it catches you off guard. Like, I think it goes from really high premise to really low premise, and it goes back to high premise again.
Okay.
And then, please tell me more, because I've been waiting. I've been wanting to talk for this for like literally 2 years. Like, this is.
yeah. So what I was saying was I liked the evolution of the character Trey. When he first walks in, he's this big bad like gang leader. He walks in and was like, everyone's like, oh man, you gotta watch out, Trey's over there, blah blah blah. He swaggers into the party. He got his crew with him. Like, there's a gunfight that breaks out, and then as the story progresses, you find out that the big bad guy of the story isn't that big and isn't that bad. And I liked that progression where we got to know more about him and find out he's not this big, scary character that we thought he was.
Yeah, exactly. It's about providing that dimensionality, and also what I really liked is that at a certain point, the main character becomes almost like a Michael Myers type.
Yeah,
That idea, if it's almost like a force of nature at that point. So I really like that aspect.
yeah. I was a big fan of. Towards the end, it almost blurred the lines of like who was the good guy, who was the bad guy. Because at one point, Trey was like, "All right, cool, we're even. Just like let's just let bygones be bygones." And DK was like, "Nah, I want my revenge. I'm coming for you." And just like, and he continued the cycle of violence that you were talking about. And I liked how it could have been squashed there. They were like body count wise, they were like literally even, but he didn't want to, and then that led to more violence and unforeseen circumstances that he didn't know was going to happen, and then he ended up like hurting people he cared about through his actions. And I really like that dynamic between the two, of someone who we start off thinking is the good guy and someone who we start off thinking is the bad guy, and how those lines blur.
Yeah, exactly. Trying to really have a plot that really nails the themes, essentially.
Yeah, very much so. It would remind me a little bit of. Have you ever seen The Wire?
No, I haven't seen The Wire actually, but that'd probably be good. I probably should.
I was about to say I have a couple episodes left of season 5. It might be like the best show I've ever seen. It's so phenomenal, and the first season starts off with the cops, and they're trying to like track down these drug dealers, and they need to use a wiretap to get them. And it's about how the cops are willing to break their rules to do what they think is right. They're willing to like bend the rules and like straight up break the law to make sure they get the drug dealers because they're the good guys. And then on the flip side, the drug dealers, they got their own like code of conduct that they're like, hey, we might be breaking the law dealing drugs, but the whole city has a rule: no shootouts on Sunday. People go to mass, they don't do that. They have like their own rules that they don't break, even though they're the quote unquote bad guys. And it blurs the lines of everyone's doing what they want to do, but who's in the right, who's in the wrong, that I thought the last couple issues of Decay also had.
Yeah, no, I definitely gotta check out The Wire, man. Now that you like, it sounds like it's perfect. It sounds like it's perfect for me, but
yeah, I was about to say, especially you being like the movie guy, having the film background. I'm surprised you haven't seen that. It's really good.
You know what it is, bro? I like quick pacing. I like stuff with fast pacing, and I think that the HBO dramas can be a little slow. You know what I'm saying? But I will give.
Oh yeah, I was gonna say The Wire starts off pretty slow. I think it's like 12-hour-long episode season 1. It's definitely like a slow burn, but by the time it like ramps up, and I don't want to say it's like Game of Thrones where there's like multiple different plot lines, but there's like multiple POVs. You have like 2 different types of cops, you got 2 different rival like drug dealers, and the way all of their character arcs and storylines like come together at the end, I think that's really satisfying. So you might enjoy, but it is a slow burn of a show at the start.
Okay, yeah, noted.
Now, talking about movies, talking about shows, talking about music, in another non-comic book aspect of this, I saw you recently started a podcast that you've been putting out on YouTube. Why don't you tell me a little bit about that?
Oh yeah, Super Comic Bros. Me and my boy Chris Moses, who's a fellow comic book creator, super talented guy. We just wanted more avenues to promote ourselves, so we just go in there and talk about a lot of different stuff, but a lot of different comic books and a lot of different topics, and we have like our guests on that are really cool. We've had Pat Shan on there, we've had Charlie Stigney, a lot of great guests.
Nice. Now, how did that come to be? Did you hit him up? Did he reach out to you? Was this an idea before Decay and you just got to it now because you were busy? Just like how did this start?
Essentially, I think it was when Twitter was looking really shaky after the Elon acquisition. We were like, yo, we need a backup platform. And then I was thinking it, and then he told me, and then like he brought it to me. I was like, yo, let's do it. Like it just makes too much sense. You know what I'm saying? Like you got to be on multiple platforms, and I really my passion is my passion is content creation and storytelling, and YouTube is a good avenue. And we actually had a video pop off a little bit. When Velma dropped, we had a video about it, and it got 18,000 views. It's a really nice feeling.
Oh wow, yeah.
Not bad.
Now, do you have any hopes or plans for the future of that show? Is there any topic that you're looking forward to covering? Is there any guests that you want to get on to the show? Just like where do you see that podcast going from here?
I just hope to keep growing it. Hope it becomes as big as my Twitter, or hopefully bigger. Hopefully become like a lightning rod for cool conversations about pop culture and comics. And definitely want to do more video essays. They're very time consuming, but they are my favorites. I used to love video. I still love video essays. I'll rewatch the same video essays. I just love like making good arguments, compelling topics. And I want to keep that up. I think the next one, this is definitely a hot take. So the one I'm working on right now is about, I was talking about The Last of Us. The TV show came out. I think the TV show was fantastic. I think it's really good. Mm-hmm. And I classically hate Red Dead Redemption 2.
Okay.
I think it is like monotonous. Have you played the game?
I've played the opening, like it came out right as when I was moving from South Carolina to Jersey. So I started it and then I stopped playing it because of the move, and I didn't have time to get back into it. But I bought it from a neighbor of mine. He bought it day one it came out, and like within a matter of a week and a half, he was like, "Dude, this is too long." He used the term monotonous. He sold it to me for like $25, and then used that money to buy like Monster Racing Motocross 2020 or like whatever, the dirt bike racing game. I'm like, dude, you sold Red Dead to get a dirt bike game? He was like, yeah, this is actually fun.
Okay, cool. So no, I agree. It's like, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful looking game, but like it's not fun. Like it's the opposite of fun, and it got me thinking. Somebody was like, oh, the game is cinematic. I'm like, yo, video games should not be cinematic. You know what I'm saying? Like comic books should not be prose like. You know what I mean? Like that's not. It's a completely different medium. Video games are the only medium that's that interactive, right? Like you get to choose a narrative, especially in an open world game, to keep taking control away from the players. I mean, I think the opening is literally like 2 to 5 hours. Like that's criminal.
Oh wow!
And I think I was playing Portal 2. I'm playing Portal 2, and I played Portal 1 like earlier this week. Great games. It's like I feel like with Portal or with great video games, with like we have good mechanics. Let's build a story around that. And I feel like with the video games now, the AAA titles, specifically the Rockstar stuff, and Naughty Dog, it's like, all right, we're gonna make a story that's gonna work around the mechanics. It's not gonna build on the mechanics in any meaningful way. Where you have Mass Effect. Those games have great story and great mechanics. You know what I'm saying? Like I said, you have Portal. You have these games. It almost feels like cheating to me. And so I really I don't know. I just don't think video games should be cinematic. And it's like, yo, we've been watching. What's the first good piece of media like that's a video game adaptation? Yeah, it's Last of Us. Because they originally they wrote a TV show and then adapted into a video game, so it's like, of course, it's a seamless transition, between the two. Like,
no, dude, I totally agree with you. There's a couple podcasts that I'm friendly with. They got into an argument on one of their shows one time about how important the story is to a video game, and it was two guests. Sorry, it was two hosts, and one of the hosts absolutely loves cinematic video games, just like they love The Last of Us, they love God of War, stuff like that. And then his other host is like, I could not care less. I just want to play the game. Just give me all mechanics, all control. Just let me play a video game. I don't want to play a movie. Exactly. So just like I think I'm somewhere in the middle where like having, I'm not even gonna say I'm somewhere in the middle. I think having a story in a video game is the thing I'm least excited about. I'd rather like when I'm playing a video game, I'm not down to sit down for like a 3-hour movie. I'm in it to like experience it. So as like shallow as it is, I'm just looking. I want it to be fun. That's like my one thing. And like like sometimes, yeah. And I mean, I know like The Last of Us said, like I watched the show. I actually stopped playing the game because I didn't like how long it was. I got to the hotel sequence and then I looked up the guideline. I'm like, man, I'm only 20% through this. I don't give a shit. I'm gonna go watch the TV show instead. So I'm very much just like, let me play the game because it's a game. But yeah, just like you're not alone. I that's like a common complaint. I've heard a bunch of people make fun of like the Naughty Dog stuff for just being a movie with a controller.
Exactly. And then when you have a TV show where I'm not trying to get back to, when I'm trying not to like, I'm not wanting to press the cutscenes. You have a great product, and yeah, I mean it's just, but like video game stories have been a part of video games a lot. You know what I'm saying? Like it's only recently I feel where it's like, all right, we're the video gameplay is second. That's the least important thing, And even if you look at Uncharted came out like 2009 or whatever, probably earlier than that. Like those games are not fun. Like they have amazing like action set pieces, and it's just holding the control in a direction. And you play like a Breath of the Wild or something where it's like barely any story. It's so fucking fun. Like it's almost the same thing except the mechanics are built around platforming, and it's amazing. Like it's so fun. But that's just one of the things that I like to explore media through through whatever, through conversation, through YouTube, through Twitter, whatever it is.
Yeah. So I know previously you mentioned that you have a background in film, and we previously discussed today how much of a music influence has on you and the art. So I don't think we're that far removed from 2022. So what were some of your favorite movies or albums of last year that you think people should go check out?
Last year, I'm trying to think. Everything We Were All at Once was fantastic. Call Me If You Get Lost, the Tyler Creator album came out 2021. I know that, but that was an amazing album. That was such an incredible album, and I really appreciate how Tyler Creator like reinvented himself. And it's really an inspiration. The Kendrick Lamar album last year was obviously Mr. Morale was fantastic on FM. Weekend and Travis. I said Travis. Tyler Creator is so interesting. I think they have similar career trajectories. It's like they start off with a very like specific sound. There's like some transitional albums, and then like they start to make the music they were trying to make earlier, and it's just nirvana. It's just incredible.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm trying to think of anything else that I'm like listening to. Chainsaw Man. Oh my god. Oh my goodness.
Oh, okay, Chainsaw Man. Yeah. Okay.
I read Chainsaw Man last year, and I thought it was amazing. And then I read Fire Punch, which is his other series. That is, it's a lot more raw. Like Chainsaw Man is more polished in a lot of ways, and I just loved how I didn't know where the story went. And I don't know if you saw my other series, Intrusive Thoughts. I don't know if you got a chance to read that, but that series was entirely influenced by Tatsuki Fujimoto and his ability to like keep the audience off guard, and you just have no idea. Oh, nice. Okay. Fire Punch especially, like you just have no idea where that story is going, and every turn, it's every 10 issues, it's like holy shit! Like I did not see this. I just love that because when you study enough stories, you kind of see everything coming. So if you can catch me off guard, oh my goodness.
Yeah, and like going back to what I said earlier, I thought the same thing. So right now we're in the middle of watching Yellow Jackets. It's on Showtime. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but it's about a plane crashing, and there's a high school soccer team who like lands in the wilderness and they need to survive. And the story bounces between 1995 when the plane crashed and like 2021 where like the survivors are now. It's like a thriller mystery type thing, and like you're trying to figure out what happened in the meantime. And like whenever something comes up, I turn to my girlfriend. I'm like, watch this. I bet X, Y, and Z is gonna happen because I've watched enough like shows and movies that like I can pick up on like the foreshadowing that they do. Like, oh, someone mentioned this, blah blah blah. But I did not. Again, I don't want to ruin this for people who are trying to read it. But the last issue of Decay, the necklace does some necklace bullshit, and like I did not see that coming, and I was like I was like, oh, that is cool. I knew something was gonna happen with it. I was not expecting that to happen though.
Yeah, you see, most twists are essentially like two subplots combining, right? Like, okay, what's the Sixth Sense? I forgot what the actual plot of Sixth Sense is, but like, okay, there's a kid that Bruce Willis is trying to help, and he's having a fight. He's having problems in his personal life, and then at the end, the two plots converge, and it's like, oh, he's having problems with his personal life because he's a ghost. So, a lot of times, like when you look at a twist, it's what parts are being overemphasized that haven't paid off yet before like the second act, and then you can kind of just guess, you know. But I think with this, and with, you know, with other stuff, it's like you just don't have to show your hand when you're not you're not teasing a mystery, right? That's when you can really. I think that's maybe where like stuff like. And I think, you know, that's the problem with the TV show is that you have to tease mystery, right? Like, but I also think that's where J.J. Abrams gets into trouble because it's like, oh, you're tipping your hand, and then like I'm expecting something, and then like, you know, I don't want to say I'm usually disappointed, but I mean that's been the case lately, certainly.
Speaking of J.J. Abrams, did you ever see the TED Talk he did on the mystery box?
Oh man, I saw just a clip, man. It's just like, bro, I've never seen a TED Talk like that. It just cooks them, you know. Like it's just so crazy to me. It's just like, especially when I feel like you can do that with like a little. There, you know, you go to the red box, you pick up a little DVD that's like a little. What do they call them? Oh my god, when it's one place, it's like oh my goodness, this is gonna drive me crazy. I'm so damn tired. But basically, like a little thriller that's like takes place in one spot. Or something like that. It's like, yeah, you can do a shadow box then, but you're talking about franchises. You're talking about stuff that has a greater connectivity to the universe. It's like you're just admitting that you don't have mysteries figured out. Like, what the hell?
Yeah. So for the people who haven't seen that, his whole thing was he got up and explained his writing process about how people don't like the resolution of a mystery. They like the what's going on aspect of a mystery. So essentially his TED Talk was just string them on for as long as you can, and then sometimes if you don't resolve it, that's okay because they enjoyed the ride. And like a whole bunch of people gave him flack for that because people like a resolution. But I liked how in Decay, we had the necklace and it was setting up, I think in issue like 2 or 3, it starts like glowing. You're like, oh, what's going on? So you know something's going to happen. So it's not just like completely out of the blue, because I also don't think that's a satisfying twist. When just like, it's almost like a Deus Ex Machina thing, where just like in the last panel, something that was never discussed comes in and does like some wild nonsense. You're like, that's a cop-out. But I liked how even from like issue 2, you're like, all right, something's up with this necklace, and I didn't know what was going to happen with it. I thought you perfectly blended all of that together.
Yeah, well, and that's the benefit of work. The opposite of J.J. Abrams. That's the benefit of working backwards from a solution, right? Is that you're planting the seeds essentially from the start, and it just feels way more organic, and then as well you don't really you also don't want to provide an either or scenario, right? You want a scenario where anything could happen, and I think that's also why it worked, because like there's no way to tip your hand. There's no way of knowing what's going to happen. I believe anyway.
Oh, exactly. And I feel like I've been singing the praises of specifically the last issue this whole podcast, but just like the last issue, it was really fucking good. But you mentioned previously that you were working on 4 new series. Are they under wraps? Is one of them going to Kickstarter soon? Can you talk a little bit about that, or is it too early for any of those?
Actually, we can talk about that. So I have a manga I'm working on. It's a revenge.
Oh, nice.
Another revenge. I have like literally like 2 or 3. I just love the revenge. Revenge is great because it's a good way. It's an easy way to keep your character's motivation. I love Kill Bill, right? For instance,
yeah,
I have to Kill Bill. Like I can just say it. It's simple. And again, I like simple plots because it allows you to hang a bunch of themes and other stuff on top of that. So that's a revenge fantasy manga. It's really cool, and I love manga. Like I like manga more than comics. I have to be honest, and it's really good to be able to like throw my hat in the ring on that. And then I'm working on a sequel to Decay, a sequel spinoff that is going to be it's like more, it's grimier, it's like
Okay.
really nasty. Like I describe the feeling as like picking up a wet cigarette tray. That's
Ugh. Okay. Yeah.
exactly. Like a lot of Pusha T, Danny Brown, like I said when I'm listening to that one. So that's going to be really, really cool. And then I have something called Choose Your Thoughts, which you should definitely check out. That's the one I dropped earlier this year. That's fantastic. It's like a kind of a sister series to Decay. It deals with it's an orphan, and he's with his foster parents. His foster parents are like, just use them as a paycheck. They're always gone. He just keeps
Yeah.
And then he has sleep paralysis, night terrors, and his sleep paralysis demon bites one of his classmates. So it's like, oh, why? It's another mystery. Like, oh man, why is this happening? And then I'm working on. It's called Tap or Die, and it's a wrestling revenge series. So it's more revenge stuff, kind of like the Creed movies, but just okay. I love this movie so much. I love Michael B. Jordan. The Creed 3 was incredible. It's kind of dealing with that. When I think about shonen, I get frustrated. Like shonen, and I have 3 genre of stories that I pretty much grew up on. Shonen, what I'm saying, like Naruto, Dragon Ball Z, One Piece.
Yeah.
Raunchy comedies like Judd Apatow, like Superbad, Knocked Up, and then like pitch black thriller, like Tarantino, stuff like that. Yeah. So some of my frustrations with Shonen Jump, or specifically the Shonen Jump stuff, is that like you always move the goalpost. Like it's like, oh, if this doesn't happen, if this happens, if A happens, then B happens, we lose, and then A happens, and oh no, there's a bet. Oh, if you use this power, your body's gonna be damaged beyond repair. And it's like, oh no, I just waited like one arc and I'm good now. It's like I really love incorporating what I love from the shonen genre and then kind of like commenting on it or reinforcing it. Like the fantasy manga. It's called I Wish the Gods Were Dead. It's about fighting insurmountable odds and committing to those insurmountable odds. It's a metaphor for life, essentially, but it's not going to be like, I hate ass pulls. You said Deus Ex Machina. Like, I hate those, man. Don't set up stakes and then don't undercut the stakes, because now there's nothing for me to grab onto now,
Yeah. No, I totally agree, and I'm not much of a manga or anime reader. I think a lot of what's popular, like you mentioned, is like shonen stuff. And my biggest issue with shonen stuff is I feel like they over-explain a lot of stuff. That there's a lot of internal monologuing where they just talk through what's happening, and like I'm reading it, and like that. My biggest gripe with this, like, you don't need to explain what's going on. It's a visual medium. I can see what's going on, and then I always, maybe this is just me being a baby, but I always take that to mean the author or the director who's ever doing that thinks the audience is too dumb to pick up on what's going on. And I'm just like, man, I may be stupid, but I'm not dumb, So just like,
what I'm realizing, like, somebody put me onto. A lot of times it might be the editors, right? Like that's something that, because I don't think of mangas having editors. Like, I mean, I guess we have such a good understanding of like the Western comic book publishing thing. So it's like a lot of times maybe it's I've been trying to be nicer. I'm like, it might be the editors, that might want it. Also, it also could be the translation, like just trying to be fair, what I mean? Like I remember, but there's also stuff. I remember that Naruto, they discussed, it was one point where they were like, oh, it's like nuclear fission. It's like, hold on, what the fuck? Where did this come from? Nah, that's just, I don't give a fuck. That's terrible. That's a terrible line. But no, I have a love-hate relationship with, like I said, shonen. So just exploring those themes, and I love stuff like Attack on Titan or Chainsaw Man. which I think people would argue it's Attack on Titan is really a shonen, but for the sake of conversation, because it kind of takes. I don't know if you watched Attack on Titan.
Yeah, I watched the first 2 seasons, and then I read up to chapter 70. So I think it's over. I think they ended at like 150, 160 something. So I got to just about the halfway point.
Yeah, so you haven't even gotten to like I think it becomes Attack on Titan around the 3rd season. So I'm about to take a look online and see where you're at. But essentially,
that's what everyone tells me. They said, Mike, you stopped listening right when it was like shit got crazy.
Oh, essentially, yeah, it becomes like, yeah, this is after this. No, you got into like a pretty good part. I think you're like. But after this, it becomes amazing. Like, it's like nonstop, and there's a piece of like world building and reveal that is incredible. Essentially, like Eren Yeager is like an extreme example of like a shonen protagonist, right? Like he's unmoving. He's unwilling to budge. He's kind of a dumbass because of that. Like he's kind of a dumbass. So I love things that kind of explore that. When you look at Chainsaw Man, I was seeing that somebody said that like they didn't like. I almost said Shinji. Oh my god, what am I doing? It didn't like Denji because his whole motivation for like the second arc is to touch boobs. It's like, like, oh, it's just nasty. I'm like, word, but it's a satire. Like it's a comment. I think it's a commentary on nihilism. I also think it's a commentary on the idea of a shonen protector. Like he doesn't have some big, goal. He just wants he wants what he wants. You know what I mean? Like.
Yeah, exactly. Very cool, very cool. You mentioned earlier that you had a lot of revenge stories coming up, and I don't know if you read it, but when I was reading this, I was getting a lot of vibes from James O'Barr's The Crow. They turned into a movie with Brandon Lee. Yeah. I don't know if you've seen or read it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but like, it's like one of my favorite movies, one of my favorite comic books, and it's another... Someone dies a death, and then they come back, and now it's like a supernatural, like, revenge thriller. So I was very happy getting through that. Listeners, if you haven't figured it out by now, it's like there's like magic involved. He comes back from the grave to seek revenge, and like that's totally up my alley. That was very cool, and I think The Crow takes place in Detroit, and like being in Detroit is like central to that because they have like. Devil's Night the night before Halloween, and that's like here in like the Jersey Philly area we have like Mischief Night. And when I was explaining it to like Devil's Night to people or from the area, we're just like they'll go around TPing people here, and I'm like, no, the central aspect of The Crow is just like there were like arsons and murder, and they're like, oh no, it's nothing like that. But like, so I think being like in the violent city of Detroit was like very central to being in The Crow, and we talked about this the first time we did this podcast, but our listeners didn't hear it. This takes place in New Orleans, and I think that's such a unique setting. It feels very vital to the story. Like the first issue in particular is just so New Orleans everywhere that I feel like if you moved it to another city, it would lose some of the magic. Not like actual like magical abilities, just some of the magic that makes the story itself,
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's where the idea came from. Was like, I thought that a lot more R-rated superhero movies were on the horizon. So I was like, all right, cool. Let me throw my hat in the ring. And I thought about like, where's cheap to film? New Orleans, okay. And then I kind of voodoo, and I kind of worked backwards from there. Like,
Yeah. And again, that's going back because you have a film background. One of your first thoughts was, where is it cheap to film this? And then you worked backwards from there. So just like, I liked how this has a whole bunch of different mediums and inspirations coming together to make like one big man, I'm going to show how uncultured I am. I was going to, what's the food that's real popular in New Orleans where it's just like a big pot of stuff? Is it gumbo?
Gumbo or jambalaya, possibly.
Okay, man, I was going to make some clever joke about how it was like that and you're putting everything together, but I've never been to New Orleans. I don't know. But I love the New Orleans setting. Like, the first issue is, like, real colorful. Like, they're walking down the street and, like, you can clearly tell, oh, cool, this is New Orleans. I like this setting. And I think because of, like, the mystical, like, voodoo aspect of the city, it worked really well with, like, within the story.
I think that's, like we said, I think that's the only time. The only place you could really set it. You know what I'm saying? And I think I think it's great. You know, why not use that to your advantage? Like New Orleans is crazy because it's almost got its own kind of lore. Like, it's almost like a fictional city. It's like a melting pot in of a melting pot. You know, you got Creole, you got like West Indian culture, you know, you got French culture, Southern culture, American culture. You know, it's just so many different kind of things, man. It's an incredible. I can't wait to go. I'm gonna go. I'm in there at some point, and I can't wait.
Yeah, it's very exciting. I've never been to New Orleans, but reading this comic feels like, okay, cool. I've been there. I don't need to go to New Orleans anymore. Obviously, I want to. It seems like a very cool place to go visit. We were in Roanoke one time, driving from New York down to South Carolina, where we were living at the time, and we stopped in Roanoke because Virginia was about the halfway point. And we stopped at, it was a New Orleans themed restaurant. I think the name of the restaurant was called Bourbon Street, and just like, it was a little slice of New Orleans, just like in this Virginia city, and like, it was so cool. And we're driving out of Roanoke to go back to Charlotte, and we were like, should we just skip home and just you want to go to New Orleans? You want to take another 4 days off of vacation? And just like it's very cool. I would love to go one day.
It's one of those things that I'm really looking forward to, and it sounds like I said, you're the first person to read issue 5, so it sounds like I stuck the landing. Okay.
Yes, very much so. I think issue 5 was definitely my favorite of them, just of everything that happens and the way everything comes together. And then I think it has a really good ending. I'll say it's not necessarily reading it. It's not like the ending I think people are expecting to get, but it ends very like. Okay, this is going to be a little bit of a stretch, but we were talking series finales of TV shows one time, and my friend couldn't articulate the difference between the Parks and Rec ending and the Office ending, and he goes, Parks and Rec ended, but The Office had an ending, and he just kept emphasizing that. And he got the point across, and I just want to say that Decay had an ending. Like shit goes down and it all wraps up, and like maybe it's not the ending you were thinking or you saw coming, but at the end of it you were like, you know what, yeah, that was a good ending. I get that.
All right, so if I'm allowed to, because I don't remember what happened in Parks and Rec, but is essentially saying that like they could do another season of Parks and Rec. Like he's saying that The Office is like done, like that's it.
Yeah, he was. But both of them ended like 8 years ago. So if I'm remembering this conversation correctly, I think he was saying one of them just felt like the end of a season. Let's say just felt like it was wrapping up, but the other one like ended off like the decade that was The Office. Like The Office was such like a cultural powerhouse that like it had an ending that fit its like status in like the zeitgeist. Whereas Parks and Rec, like, yeah, it's over. It seemed like a season finale compared to a series finale. And like the ending of this, it very much like everything wrapped up nicely, everything came together, and you're like, yeah, that was an ending. So I'm excited for issue 5 to come out. Issues 4 and 5, they're on Kickstarter right now, so I'm sure we can talk about like the details of the Kickstarter for a bit. But listeners, go check it out. Issue 5, totally worth it. So I have a couple more questions here. Looking at my notes,
yeah.
I see that your Discord icon is that. I know it's One Piece, and my best friend, the same guy who said The Office ended, he's the biggest One Piece fan I know, so I know a little bit through him. Is that Martial Law? Is that who that is?
Yeah. Blackbeard. Yeah. I just love Blackbeard.
Okay, cool. Okay, very nice. So I was looking at it and I recognized that. I'm like, okay, I know that's One Piece. I don't know anything about it. So I don't have a question to ask you about One Piece, but as I noticed that, it popped in my mind. if someone wanted to start making comic books tomorrow, what is one piece of advice you would give them to get them started?
Somebody asked me this. I think, man, just take what you think you might have to pay for the comic and add a zero to that motherfucker at the end, bro. It's there are expenses that you don't even know that you don't know about, man. That's all I'm gonna say. Like that. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's such good advice. So far, so this is only episode 3. I haven't had the chance to interview many people with this, and so far one of them was just read more comics, get more inspiration, and I liked how that was like the passion aspect of it, but this is very much the actuality of it. Like, if you want to make a comic book, it's like, it's costly, it's dedication, just like, I like that. That's really good advice.
I mean, yeah, I'm a real practical guy, Like, I think that's true. Like, definitely read. You're not gonna be able to come. I like today. I had a day off. I'm doing podcasts. I'm doing a little bit of cooking, but I've been watching Death Note, and it's been great. I've been watching Death Note playing Portal. It's like, I don't get to do this anymore. Like, I don't get to just watch. I don't get to consume media anymore. Like, it's incredible. It's like an amazing feeling. So, no, definitely, definitely read as much as you can, and I think that the lead up to the comic book is so important. Like, that is so important on figuring out, like, getting the project figured out, like what you're really looking to make. And that time before that is, just really focus on that, embrace it, because once you start, it's almost like having a kid. Obviously it's like on a much lower stakes, but it's almost like that. Like, once you take that step to becoming like from a hobbyist to trying to make this a profession, or maybe not a profession, but once you're investing a significant amount of money into it or a significant amount of time, it just changes it.
I totally get that. Just not from comic books on my end, but just from like trying to get into hobbies or trying to make something. It's always just like, cool, I want to do this. Oh, here is the price point. Maybe I have like the time and the energy. Maybe I don't have the money to do this right now. But like that's really good. And I think that's something people need to consider when trying to start a comic book like this. So I'm glad you brought that up, because I'm not in the comic world. I'm comic adjacent, and that's something I never would have thought of to bring up.
There's so many different. There's almost no wrong answer to that. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's just so many different dynamics.
So I'm looking at my notes. I only have one question left.
Okay.
Before we get to that, just like, dude, this is like your podcast. Is there anything you want to talk about? We're gonna close it out talking about the Kickstarter and where people can find you and all that good stuff. But is there anything you wanted to bring up? Anything you wanted to say? Go check this out, or just like I don't know. The floor is yours. Do whatever you want.
Check out Decay. That's it. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's all we need, really. Like, definitely check that out.
Okay, very nice, very nice. We're going to get to the plugs. I'm going to tell everybody where to find you, where to find the podcast, the Kickstarter. But before that, I'm looking at my notes. I got one question left.
Mm-hmm.
So, imagine, if you will, you step out of your house. Yeah. Imagine, if you will, you step out of your house tomorrow, and you're going to go pick up McDonald's or something. And you get out, and there's like car accidents, cars on fire, people are screaming. You're like, oh shit, what's going on? And you look around. It's a zombie apocalypse. The zombies are here. They're like rampaging everything, and it's not like George Romero zombies. It's like 28 Days Later zombies, where they're like fast and they're like parkouring off of shit. So you're like, okay, I gotta get out of here, and you drive to the mall. You think the mall, you can get food, you can get supplies. You're gonna hunker down there. You go into like Dick's Sporting Goods. You're like, I'm going to get some hunting rifles if I need to like survive. I'm going to go get some food, maybe some gear. And you get there, and like there's a crowd already there. And between you and me, they listen to too much Alex Jones. And like, you're like, no. I don't like this vibe. I don't like those Alex Jones motherfuckers. I'm going to go somewhere else. And you wander into Toys R Us. So you now have free reign of Toys R Us. You are an adult. You can do whatever the hell you want in Toys R Us. What are you picking up? What toy are you going to grab?
Okay, hold on a second. Damn, bro. I guess if it was close, if I'm imagining, because I haven't bought a toy in 20 years. So I'm gonna.
Okay. I'm gonna go ahead and add real quick. Zombies, they're from the future. They have time travel mechanics. You've time traveled to the Toys R Us of when you were a kid. You can now pick up your favorite childhood toy. If,
right.
if that's a different answer.
I have the answer. I have the definitive answer. Well, one. Okay, so I have one B. Is I used to have the Hot Wheels giant wheel where you could put your tracks on, your cars in. That was amazing.
Okay, yeah.
And I had a dual disc. I don't know what happened to it. That was the coolest shit, man. Like, I loved Yu-Gi-Oh! I adored Yu-Gi-Oh! Rest in peace to the creator. That was my shit. I gotta say the dual disc.
Okay. Dual disc. Okay, very cool. Now you kicked me off on a little bit of a Yu-Gi-Oh! Tangent. What deck were you rolling with? What was your favorite card?
I love the Joey deck. I just loved his dynamic. Okay. I like the goofy kind of underdog character, and the fact that his deck was like, it had the most tension because it was always like some goofy shit. It was so much predicated on luck that it just made for great drama, you know.
Okay. Very nice, very nice. It has been years since I played Yu-Gi-Oh! I was working at a summer camp. I don't know how long ago it was, but it was the year Pokemon Go came out, because I remember everyone was playing Pokemon Go, and some of the kids of the summer camp was like, hey, play Yu-Gi-Oh! With us, and they gave me their decks, and I don't know any of that shit anymore. It's like, it's an entirely different game. I don't know if you've played Yu-Gi-Oh! In a while, but just like, oh, no. It's a completely different monster from what you and I played as a kid.
They fucked it up irreparably. It's like, once they started adding the white cards, it's like, yeah, I don't even know what's going on. Mm-hmm. Like, a game should more or less, you should be able to play it. I can pick up Tony Hawk like 20 years ago, and I could still play it somewhat. Like, once you start adding all that crazy shit, it's like, bro, what are we doing?
Yeah. I felt the exact same way. But I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up here. I'm done with my notes. So please let the people know where they can find you, where they can find your podcast, where they can find Decay, and everything that you mentioned here, I'm going to include in the show notes down below. So people listening, if you're driving, don't frantically write this down. Just you can click the link. Everything will be in the notes. But please, let us know everything that you want to plug.
Absolutely. So Super Comic Bros on YouTube, at Stokes the Writer on Twitter, and then Decay issues 1 through 5 on Kickstarter. Please check it out.
Wonderful. And like I said, simple links. Listeners, just click that. Go support it. I supported the Kickstarter the other day. I used my actual name, so you might not have known that was me, but I supported it the other day. I'm very excited. I can't wait for it to come out. And on my end, I don't have much to plug. The only thing I'm gonna put out there is I helped release a comic book. I did not write it. I did not draw it. You can think of me as an editor or a publisher. I put everything together and I put it out there. It is a pay what you want for the comic book. It's on a GoFundMe, which the link will be down below. If you want to just read it and experience the art and read the story for free, you can. But my buddy Julio Delgado made the comic book, and all of the proceeds from it, if you choose to donate to it, go to the Rainforest Action Network, which is a charity that he loved, and it helps fight deforestation and helps fight for indigenous people's rights. So, like I said, I'm not actually in the comic universe. I'm comic adjacent, and that's where my adjacentness ends. I helped him with that comic book, so I'm going to go ahead and throw that down below.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. And I definitely got to see what you thoughts.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah, it is. I'll go check the Google Drive after this, but maybe not on the podcast. Like, once I read it, I'll text you my thoughts.
I need that validation, man. Check it out.
Yeah, of course. Just like, even if it's just like half as good as Decay, I'm sure I'm gonna love it, because I've been singing Decay's praises for over an hour now. It's so
Nothing
good.
is better than Decay. Nothing is better than Decay.
But cool. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for not getting fed up with me after 3 times now. I've had audio issues, and you sticking with me throughout. I appreciate the patience with that. And like I said, I love the comic book, and I appreciate you coming on.
Thanks so much for having me, man.
No, dude, no worries. Anytime. And just like, so it's funny. I stopped doing podcasts for a while after my basement flooded, and I had a couple different like things I wanted to start. I had this comic podcast. I had a video game podcast that was coming up, and the only podcast that I ever got messages about. I would like randomly get DMs from people and they're like, hey, I really enjoyed the comic book podcast. When are you going to start interviewing people again? I was like, oh, I don't know. Maybe I should. So just like people have been asking for this. So I'm glad you reached out. We were able to get this out there. But yeah, people, thank you so much for listening. Go support Anthony and everything that he does. Like I said, the notes are below. Do you know how long the Kickstarter runs for? Because I want to give the listeners a hard date so they don't slack and procrastinate.
Let me get that exact date from you for when it ends April 25th.
April 25th, perfect. So that gives everyone like 3 weeks to do it. Don't wait that long. Go support it now because it's fucking amazing. And Anthony, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate everything that you've helping me through. And when you start any of the next four issues or whatever you're doing, if you want to come back on or just, I'm here. I'm not doing anything.
And be careful what you wish for, because I guess it'll find it sooner than you think. But absolutely, man. Thank you so much.
Very nice. Thank you. Listeners, thank you for making this far, and we'll see you next time.